So I've got a little confession to make. I'm actually recording this on my lunch hour. I returned to work today after being out on vacation last week. It was great. Loved every minute of it. Wish vacations were longer. But I thought a lot about work in this podcast, probably a little too much on vacation. And I wanted to kind of talk about that. I recorded an episode down at the place we were staying for vacation, and was all prepared and all excited to post it up, and got into editing it. And that's always what seems to trip me up. Is I start trying to pause to fix a mistake in my audio, and then I end up losing my place, and something happens, and I end up forgetting about it altogether. But what I want to do with this podcast starting now is talk a lot more about computers and about IT. I've got a lot of mental health stuff that I'll still slide in there occasionally. I'm sure. I'm met with a new group of therapists, and I'm really honestly I'm doing everything I can to try and figure out what is going on with my mental health. I feel a lot more stable these days. And I feel like a lot, not all of the anxiety, but a lot of the anxiety has kind of peeled away. I remember these moments where like it was just this feeling that I had kind of in my entire body. And I there are times I feel it creep back. Um, right now, talking about it honestly is bringing back a twinge of it. But I, over my vacation, I got to thinking a lot about celebrity. And it all kind of started with I was listening to Walton Goggins uh, do this thing where when you type in his name into Google, what are the top three results? And he talked about his profession, acting. And he talked about a number of things that kind of caught my attention. He touched on networking, like how easy it is for an actor to go from one role to another, and then you make relationships, you meet new people along the way. Well, I've met a lot of people along the way, but they've all came through the same place. The place I've worked for the past 25 years. So I'm never gonna be as famous or prominent as somebody like Dave Plummer. I'm envious of him because he worked on so much public facing cool Microsoft stuff. But you know, it's a lot of this is driven by my introversion as well. Um, while we were on vacation, I went out one night with somebody I've actually known since second grade. Um, and we talked about a lot of stuff. And she's just the best. I mean, she really, if you're listening to this, I am talking about you. It was just a great conversation. It gave me a lot to think about. It was kind of eye opening. We talked about autism. Her son has autism, and she's a remarkable advocate on his behalf. And I've seen that about her. Um, just in following her on social media, we're good friends, but we don't see each other all that often, if that makes a lot of sense. So, but she did a lot of really strong advocacy for her son, and I thought, well, at least she would have a perspective. So we talked a little bit about it, and she talked about this concept of bandwidth. And I'll give her full credit for it. This is all her, but it's basically like you have a lot of capability in one area but limited capability in other areas because you can only focus on so many of the different things. And so sometimes the social stuff and the behavioral stuff suffers at the expense of some of the more problem solving or other types of intellectually oriented things that tend to be associated with autism. And it really resonated with me because there've been a couple of times in my career where I've gotten the reputation, I suppose, of being somewhat surly or curmudgeonly. I think I may at one point in time have fit the standard 70s Unix system administrator profile. I'm not that old, I assure you, but the gruff beard and the suspenders and the coffee and the disdaining attitude. That was one thing that I think Dilbert captured really well, was just how poorly integrated people like that are into society. And hey, I was one of them. That was what was, that was what I was able to concentrate on most. When I was put into a situation with having to interface with a lot of people or whatever, it always became such a disruption to me. And I think that might be where some of the ADD part of things comes from. I've talked a couple of times about AUDHD and things I've read, and I don't know. Maybe there's nothing to it. Maybe I'm making it up, but I don't know. It's something about it just feels like it's substantial. So um this will also interestingly be the first episode that I do where I don't have any script or any outline or any notes whatsoever. And I'm gonna try something. Hopefully this works. But the reason for that is I like having a record of what I've said, so I'm not repetitive. The challenge now is that I've done enough of these where I keep losing track of the things I've talked about versus the things I haven't talked about. So it's more likely that I'll repeat myself on a story, which is something I try and be cognizant of and not do. So, out of respect for keeping these as brief as I possibly can. So anyway, along those lines, thanks again for listening and take care.